Welcome to Dublin. This city is the capital of the Republic of Ireland and it's best known for its rich music scene, its pub culture and its great literary history. In this travel guide, we're going to show you the very best of Dublin, including hidden gems and a day trip. St Patrick's Cathedral is the most important religious building in Dublin and it's had cathedral status since 1213. However, local legend suggests that actually it's here in a spot nearby where St Patrick baptised the first Irish Christians with water from the River Poddle, which sprung up in a well on this site. Today, you do have to pay to visit the cathedral, but you can visit St Patrick's Park, which is right next door for free. It's pretty nice in the summer months. And here you can see the exterior of the cathedral. Dublin Castle is a former Motte and Bailey castle and its original position was chosen because it's the highest point of central Dublin. Most of the buildings you see today actually date back to the 18th century and the name Dublin actually comes from the name Dark Pool because this is where there was a water source of the River Poddle. If you head to the roof of the Chester Beatty, which is completely free to visit, then you'll get even better views of Dublin Castle. While the skies of Dublin might often be overcast, the architecture more than makes up for this, and you'll often find colourful houses, shop fronts and pubs around almost every corner. Molly Malone is an iconic figure from Irish folklore, and right next to her statue, you'll often find live music performances are taking place. If there's one experience that every visitor makes a point to visit in Dublin, it's the Trinity College and the Book of Kells. Now, the Book of Kells dates back to around 800 Common Era when it was beautifully illustrated by Irish monks. It's written in Latin and is a copy of the 4 Gospels of the New Testament. Also included in the price of your entrance ticket, you'll get to visit the old library, which is unfortunately empty of books at the moment, but there is a beautiful earth sculpture. It's also home to the oldest harp of Ireland, which has since become an insignia for the country. Now, even if you get the last minute tickets, it is €19 to visit, which I think is quite expensive because it doesn't take more than half an hour to see the exhibition and the library, but it is definitely worth your time while you're here because the book is so beautiful. We're now going to visit Marsh's Library, which is the oldest public library in Ireland. It's a bit of a hidden gem of Dublin and you can visit from Tuesday through to Saturday.
Well, you're very welcome here. It's the oldest public library in Ireland. They started building it in 1701 and it was officially opened to the public in 1707. It's all thanks to one man there on the portrait, our Archbishop Marsh. His first name was Narcissus, believe it or not. He was an Oxford graduate. He knew many different languages, and he was invited to Dublin as a provost of Trinity College. In 1679, when Marsh came here at the age of 40, Dublin was a very small town around St. Patrick's Cathedral. Trinity College was on the outskirts of Dublin, basically. That's how long ago that was. Trinity College at the time didn't have a long hall yet, and so it was his dream to build a library in Dublin, because those things didn't exist yet, really. Libraries were with universities, some monasteries, cathedrals, mostly in rich people's private collections.
Wow, that's beautiful.
This is the first gallery of Marsh's library. The 10,000 books in this room, in this gallery, they belong to Edward Stillingfleet, this man on the portrait. He was the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral. He debated John Locke. He was a friend of Queen Anne. All of these books were in his room, in his house.
Big house.
Big house, and very fancy books. They were extremely expensive at the time, still are, of course. So it covers all kinds of topics, from astronomy to zoology, medical texts, travel guides, everything that was around at the time. So Marsh, when he was building this library, in his mind he was creating this place where you get everything that humans had come up with, all the knowledge that existed at the time, put it in one place and make it accessible to the public.
So the internet of the day.
The internet of 18th century, exactly.
With the humidity of Dublin, is it a problem preserving the books? Because I imagine it gets quite damp.
It does, but the collection is really well ventilated. They're far away from the ground. We're on the kind of sort of a second floor. We check them regularly, of course. We look after them, and they're in really, really good condition. In fact, our current exhibition right now is the books that were printed right before the invention of Gutenberg's press in Europe. So everything is printed in 1400s, so it makes them over 500 years old. And this particular one is the oldest book in our collection. It's the Letters of Cicero, printed in Milan in 1472. This is one of the best sellers of 15th century. It was a history book. It was famous because it had lots of illustrations as well. So there's lots of woodcuts.
They didn't have the spaces between the words. Well, they're very small, the spaces.
Yeah.
So how would you
read? That was how people read.
Gosh. And you said that lots of the books date back 400 or 500 years. Do you know how many books are unique and that they're the only copy left in the world?
We do. We actually did an exhibition once that was called Sole Survivors. So it was the books that are not registered in any other collections, any other libraries in the world. They're not particularly interesting, actually, but they're very unique. Yeah. Let's go. I'll show you the reading room now. This is where we had readers. Up until 2012, actually, we used this room for readers. Now there's obviously no privacy when the visitors are coming through. So we moved the readers downstairs because we still work as a public library.
Okay, so how do you inscribe? Do you have to be a resident of Dublin or a student? Or?
When Marsh opened the library in 1707, he actually passed the law in the Parliament defining what the library even was. And actually, he made it a public library forever. So we're still a public library. You just have to be a member of the public. The only requirement is that you have to make an appointment in advance. So up until, like I said, up until 2012, we had readers, all the readers were here. And that means, for example, in 1865, there was a man who walked in here. He was very young. He was only 17, 18 years old. And the librarian asked him to sign the visitor's book, and he signed it Abraham Stoker. He was coming quite often here to read our books, and the librarian at the time who worked then, he was extremely meticulous, very organized, and he wrote down everything every reader read at the time. It's actually officially on record that he did read Peter Halen's Cosmography. It was a sort of a history book at the time, which does mention in the Transylvania chapter the historical figure of Vlad Dracula. We don't know if he did actually read that exact page in the book, because it's a big book, but it is on record that he actually held it in his hands.
So this library inspired Dracula, maybe?
Well, we don't claim that, but
we'd like to think it, though.
We do have the receipts. we have. I mean, this is just a fact that he actually, on record, read it here in Marsh's library.
And then there is this final room. Is there a difference between this room and the room that we saw earlier?
So this room was added slightly later. This gallery was built in 1709. Marsh's personal books are in this gallery. This gallery also has the original benches. You can see how you could just come in, sit down and read a book anywhere you wanted. Unfortunately, there was a problem with that plan because books started disappearing a lot. So in fact, in around 1750s, they changed the rules. You were no longer allowed to read in the bays. They put the metal doors on the bays here for security purposes.
So are these books even more important than the other
No,
ones?
it was always a blind corner in the library, so they just had to...
So away from the librarian.
Yes, so they just had to kind of block it. There's rumors that they were used at some point as reading cages, that some readers were locked in there, but we don't really have...
Forced to study.
Yes, but we don't really have the proof of that.
So I have one final question. Are there, other than Bram Stoker, are there any other readers that the people watching this video will have heard of before?
Well, you might have heard of James Joyce. We are actually mentioned in the most famous novel of the 20th century, Ulysses, because he...
Wait, the library is?
Yes. In the 3rd chapter, he talks about Marsh's library. Well, his protagonist, Stephen, was reading in the stagnant bay of Marsh the fading prophecies of Joachim Abbas.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for showing us around the library. It's just an amazing space. Thank you so much.
All right.
For lunch, we headed to the Saucy Cow, which serves up all kinds of vegan junk food plates close to Temple Bar. Contrary to what many people think, Temple Bar is not an actual pub, but instead the name of a district next to the River Liffey. This is probably the most popular place to visit in Dublin. It's an area filled with lots of pedestrianised cobbled lanes and lots of pubs. To be honest, it is a bit of a tourist trap. There's even now a pub called Temple Bar, but it's worth wandering around if you're already in the centre, which you probably will be because this is where most attractions are. One thing to know before you come to Dublin is that the weather is ever changing and you can experience all 4 seasons in one day, as we're doing right now because it's very rainy. In any case, behind me is officially the Liffey Bridge, but it's unofficially known as the Halfpenny Bridge, and that's because once upon a time this was actually a toll bridge that you would have to pay half a penny to cross. Mind the Step is a delightful coffee shop close to the River Liffey that makes for the perfect place to shelter from the rain. Luckily, as this was Dublin, the weather actually changes pretty fast, and by the time we'd finished our coffee, the sun was shining once more and we could even see blue skies. The Brazen Head claims to be the oldest pub in Ireland, as there's been a hostelry on site since around 1198. The building you see today was only built in the 1750s for use as a coaching inn, and the first records of the Brazen Head itself only date back as far as 1653. Unfortunately, there's also one other problem with the claim that this is the oldest pub in Ireland, because it turns out there's another pub in Athlone, right in the heart of the country, called Sean's Bar, which also claims to be the oldest bar in Ireland. Whichever story you believe, I think most people would agree on one thing, and that's that the most famous tipple of Ireland comes in the form of Guinness. The Guinness Storehouse is a site where Arthur Guinness signed a 9,000-year lease on a disused brewery site.
And if you actually look at the bottom right-hand corner, you will see Arthur's signature.
I've actually been to the Guinness Storehouse 3 times now, And while it is pretty touristy, it's also much more than a museum and is a fun, interactive space where you can learn all about Ireland's most famous drink. It's a fun way to spend an afternoon, and the visit does take a few hours because there are so many floors. In fact, the Guinness Storehouse is shaped like a pint glass, and if it were filled, it could hold 14.3 million pints. One particularly touristic activity you can do is get a stoutie, and that's having your photo printed on top of a pint. At the end of the visit, your ticket grants you access to the Gravity Bar, and this is essentially where you can have a pint of Guinness overlooking all of Dublin. It's our second full day in Dublin, and today we're going to be exploring some gems and secret spots that a lot of visitors to the city don't know about. Starting in Stephen's Green, which is one of the largest parks in Dublin. It's a very lovely space to hang out, and there's lots of birds here. Right outside of the Gaiety Theatre, you'll find Dublin's very own Walk of Fame. This is where you'll find bronze cast handprints of famous people associated with the theatre. The Huguenot Cemetery on Merrion Row is a private cemetery, and so you can only peek in the grills, unless you're a descendant of someone buried there. Nearby, you'll find O'Donoghue's. This pub is known for its live music, though there were unfortunately no performances taking place when we visited. The pub began life in the 18th century as an unlicensed drinking establishment and became particularly popular in the 1930s for its nightly traditional Irish music sessions. Oscar Wilde was born in Dublin in 1854, and he actually spent the first 10 years of his life very close to here at 1 Merrion Square. We're currently in Merrion Square Gardens, and here you'll find a life-sized replica of the writer himself. He's actually interred in Père Lachaise Cemetery in France, but you can visit his former house, which has now been turned into a small museum. Sweeney's is a former 19th century pharmacy turned bookstore and craft shop, and was once visited by James Joyce. It's even listed as a location in his world-famous novel Ulysses. In the book, lemon-scented soap is mentioned, and the pharmacy now sells this. For dinner, we headed to Big Fan, which is a Chinese restaurant serving up sharing plates. Everything was really tasty, and I was surprised at the number of vegetarian options on the menu. Obviously, Ireland isn't just about Dublin, and so we've decided to come on one of the more popular trips from the city. This is Howth. It takes around an hour to get here from the centre of Dublin on the bus, or 25 minutes by train. Once you get here to the end of the Howth Peninsula, you'll be greeted by a delightful fishing village and lots of beautiful scenery. Because of the nature of this fishing town, lots of seals are attracted to the area, and so you'll often find them hanging out in the harbour. There are even signs nearby saying please don't feed the local seals. Otherwise, there are also lots of seabirds here, and you can take regular boat tours to the surrounding islands where you can see things like guillemots, razorbills and even puffins. To be honest, the nicest thing about going to Howth is getting out and enjoying the fresh air. You can see all of the boats going past, you can spot the local wildlife, and if it's something you enjoy, you can even try the local seafood. If you have more time or it's really bad weather during your trip to Howth, you can actually visit Ye Old Hurdy-Gurdy. This is a vintage radio museum housed within a former Martello tower. From here, you have amazing views onto the town itself. One of the most impressive buildings in town has to be the ruins of Howth Abbey. What you see today dates back to between the 15th and 16th centuries, and today the area is used as a cemetery still. One of the most popular things to do on this peninsula is to go hiking, and from here you can see lots of very interesting viewpoints, including several lighthouses and also an Ire sign which was created during 1943 in the Second World War. For our final day in Dublin, we got up bright and early and headed for a breakfast at the Gander in Kilcool. The owner was really friendly and there were several vegan and vegetarian options on the menu. We then headed a little bit down the coastline to reach Wicklow. Wicklow town is the capital of County Wicklow and is home to just under 13,000 residents. The town centre is pretty cute, and the tourist office here was particularly helpful when helping us plan our day out in Wicklow. If there's one day trip from Dublin that's an absolute must if you want to experience the landscapes that Ireland is so famous for, it's the Wicklow Mountains. And so we started our day in this area by going to Glendalough. The monastic site at Glendalough is nestled in a glaciated valley and dates back to the 6th century. The name Glendalough itself actually means Valley of the Two Lakes, and here you can see atmospheric ruins founded by St. Kevin. Glenmacnas waterfall is particularly impressive as it sits 350 metres above sea level and is around 80 metres in height. close to Sally Gap, you'll find a very special bridge that was made famous by the film P.S. I Love You, as this is a bridge which Holly and Jerry crossed over the first time that they met. Loch Tay is probably the most famous lake in Ireland, as it features as the backdrop in many films. It's often nicknamed the Guinness Lake because the land was owned for many years by the Guinness family. Many people also say that it resembles a pint of Guinness. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Europe travel content. See you next week!